Hello, all you positive heads out there. It's so good to be back with all you beautiful reflections of the one source consciousness that creates and animates all things. If you're new to this podcast, of course, we are super happy to have you here, and we just ask that you bring an open mind and heart to your listening experience and to be prepared to explore vantage points that I'm convinced will help shift or solidify your current understanding of the ultimate nature of reality in a way that is extremely empowering. Speaking of exploring powerful perspectives, I'm super excited to announce the release of my very first book, The Golden Key: Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance. If you're ready to alchemize the circumstances in your life so that your abundance expands to an entirely new level in 2021, head over to goldenkey.gift to download the audio or ebook as my gift to you by using the code POSITIVEHEAD. All right, all you positive heads. On this week's Soul Share episode, I'm very excited to have Mia Hewett here with me on the show. Mia is an author and founder of Aligned Intelligence, where she helps people to unlock their ultimate potential. Super excited to have you here. Hello, Mia. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much for having me.
Super excited. Likewise. So I'm going to start with my cliche opener, and it is this. You're in an elevator. The woman next to you looks over, says, "What's your passion?" You got 10 floors to answer. What do you say?
Awakening. Awakening, right? Yeah, that is like my favorite. Really, what we do is we really help people who are constantly self-sabotaging, struggling, not knowing why they're sabotaging, who know they are meant for more, but don't know why they haven't been able to really live their potential, be able to make 6 and 7 figures in their business the faster, easier way. And it isn't in an awakening. Like, I know we were sharing earlier, like, it's like, I would like to, for people to consider that success is less about like becoming something as it is the unbecoming of everything that you really aren't, so that you can really be who you were meant to be in the first place.
I love that. And of course, you referenced, instantly referenced that your primary focus is, entrepreneurs and that
Business
huge
owners,
part of all of our lives, which is our career and how we do, as of now, live in a monetary based economy. And, that's a big, pitfall for a lot of people where they stumble there. And I know a lot of people even that are focused on elevating their consciousness and expanding their awareness tend to get tripped up there. And so I think, and you have people who also sometimes sort of like, oh, money is evil, the root of all evil. And I don't agree with that at all. I think it's really important to integrate all these parts of who and what we are in our society. And, it's all, you talked about business. I believe it's, as I say in my book, it's all spiritual business, and it's all a reflection of some part of ourselves, what sort of abundance we're calling in, or as I like to say, when we come holding our bag of sugar to be filled, it will be examined to see how large it is. What do we think we're worth? How much do we expect? And so you help people with that, and I'd love to hear all the nuggets of wisdom. And before we go too far down that rabbit hole, perhaps you can share a little bit of your backstory and just kind of how you got here. Obviously knowing what got you to this point is helpful in context.
Absolutely. So I actually grew up in South America. My mom is American. My dad was South American. And so I grew up in the jungle, and they had never seen a white girl before. And so, they would touch my skin and touch my hair and always wanting to be touching me in some way. Oftentimes they thought I was an albino, and so forth. And so I really had a really, really diverse upbringing. And when my parents divorced, when I was about 13 years old, my mother came back to the United States with 4 girls on a beginner's teacher salary. And we became instantly poor overnight.
Wow.
Like our house, was so infested with fleas that they literally killed my dog because they
Wow.
sucked the blood out of him. Yeah, it was really a traumatic time in my life. And I remember making a decision at 13 years old, like, I don't know what this is to be successful in life, but I'm going to figure this out and then I'm going to give it to the world.
Wow.
And I've always kept my promise. Like, it's exactly what I've done. I've built two multi-million-dollar companies now inside of that. And then the first one I built completely from survival and not understanding everything that I, did in the second one, but I completely did it through burnout. And my ex had, like, all kinds of stuff. Like, it's just a mess, an absolute mess. And then the second one, once I understood it all, I did it from complete freedom, flow, and ease.
Mm.
So there really is an awakening inside of that. And to add to what you're saying about wealth, I'd like to put it in this way. Like, so to me, business is really just the relationship game,
You're right.
right? Like, you're mastering relationships. And the reason why people struggle in relation, in business is because they struggle in relationships. I
Mm-hmm.
don't actually see them as separate. To me, they're all in the same. So
Right.
when you no longer fear people's judgments and opinions of you, you really have such power in order to really be able to serve your clients and show up and be seen. And when you no longer fear that there's something wrong with you, or there's something not good enough, or so forth, you're willing to market yourself and show up and be seen. Like, so it's this. I don't have it as this, just like you, Brendan, that money is something evil, or it's really that we have to really clean up our relationship with money. I'd
Right.
like to make it like similar to, it would be the equivalent of an oak tree, right? Who would, it would be the equivalent of an oak tree saying, oh, well, I can't absorb more what I need from the ground and water because I'm taking from others' oak trees.
Yeah.
Like, consider that there really is an abundance,
Yeah.
and that there isn't someone has to lose in order for someone to win, that is more of a survival
Yeah.
based mentality and not an evolving consciousness awakening.
Yeah.
It makes sense
Yeah.
to you?
I absolutely. Yeah. I think that's a really good point. Is this, I think in the old regime, if you will, the old modality and perspective on creating wealth in our lives, it was financial wealth. It
Right.
was, someone else had to lose in order for me to win. And it's all about like
Exactly.
sort of stepping on whoever
Competition.
competition as opposed to
Yeah.
collaboration. And
Yes.
I believe
Yes.
the world that is emerging, as we sort of go through our caterpillar to butterfly phase as a society, it
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
all about how do I if I help enough others to achieve what they want, then I'll get what I want as a byproduct.
Yeah.
Or as Gandhi said, if you want to find yourself, lose yourself in the service of others. And I believe that holds true because there are no others. And so,
Yeah, it's all going to come from alignment. Like, when we are in our alignment is our greatest power. And alignment, meaning, when I break that down, what I mean by alignment is when what we think, what we say, how we feel, and the actions or behaviors that we take are all in alignment within
hmm
ourselves,
yeah.
right? We are our greatest power. And
hmm
so it's really about, any time when we are not creating the results we want, we have to look at, like, what is the resistance? What piece of that is out of alignment, so
Yeah.
that we can see what's really stopping us. I'm all for breaking up the old paradigms. I've helped many people become millionaires, and like some of my, or even just become huge six-figure earners. Like, I have an artist who, when she came to me, she was making 250. In less than a year, she's over 500.
Mm.
Right. And I have another one who does custom jewelry. And, when she came to me, she was at 300, and she, in less than a year, she's at 900,000. It really is about breaking up that paradigm of, like, that there is something like that we have to, like, that we can't be good enough, or there's something wrong with us, and so forth. It's really getting down to the core root
Yeah.
cause
Yeah.
of where does that originally come from?
Yeah.
So what we're doing is we actually found, and how like it all relates to my own, like how did I go from building a multi-million dollar company in survival and then another one from freedom, flow, and ease. The gap between those two really comes down to when you really understand what's stopping every human being. What is stopping them isn't actually logical,
Mm.
it's actually emotional.
Right.
And so when we follow that rabbit hole, well, what's the earliest memory? Because if you can feel this, every baby is born, like every single baby that's born, not one of them is born with a self-esteem issue.
Right.
Right? So where did that happen? And so as a child grows, we grow by an emotional bond of trust. And then till something happened, we see that the break in trust happened most often times like when they were around, a year old or 2 years old or 3 years. It's very young, but about
Mm-hmm.
like it's not even, it's before, most often before grade school for
Mm-hmm.
sure. So
Mm-hmm.
somewhere between 1 and 3 years old, and there will something happen that broke your trust. It blindsided you, shocked you, confused you, and caused you to begin to doubt yourself. And in that moment of a break in trust, what happened to every single one of us is we pulled back inward. We
Mm.
felt all alone, like something is wrong, must be wrong with who I am. For that to happen, the real me must not be okay. So I need to become something
Mm-hmm.
that I need to be to survive. And that original break in trust is
Mm.
what creates our ego from
Mm.
our authentic self. That's
Mm.
how our authentic self ceases to exist psychologically. It doesn't ever cease to exist, but it does psychologically.
Mm.
And then we become some way to survive. So every single person from that day forward, every negative experience they feel and that has happened to them will become a deeper, bigger version of the same damn trauma.
Mm. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. And then it becomes, like you said, unbecoming.
Then the real work is really not to become something, it's to unravel that, it's to unbecome. So like what we're really doing, right? Because the truth is we can't live beyond where we are consciously.
Yeah.
So wisdom is the result of first becoming aware of what is really stopping us, then gaining the understanding of, oh, we have to separate the misconception and the misunderstanding or the misperception so that we
Mm-hmm.
can see the truth. And then once we see the truth, right now we have to apply that truth consistently such that we will then have new experiences. And our new experiences will actually create the results we really want.
Mm.
So there's a
Yeah.
recipe for success. It's not random. Nothing is actually happening random.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah. So, what is your advice to
Yeah.
people who are, somewhere in that journey and
Yeah.
they're like, I don't really know where my major blockage is, what story I'm telling? Like, I'm at the beginning of, okay, I hear everything that you're saying. I'm
Yeah.
excited about uncovering and removing the things that are in the way. Where do I begin?
Yeah. The fastest way for us to show it to you, because it's easier if we just guide you. And the reason I say that is because to try to figure this out yourself, the reason why so many people sabotage, not because there's something really wrong with it, but the reason is you can't see it from inside yourself. So it would
Yeah.
be the equivalent, and I know you know that, Brain. It's like it would be the equivalent of a heart surgeon doing his own heart surgery.
Right.
Right? Because you can't be both the practitioner and the patient at the same moment in time. And every time you come out of being the patient, trying to be the practitioner, every time you go into psychoanalysis, trying to psychoanalyze what's happening, you actually stop the process.
Mm.
So it's much easier if we just guide you. We have a challenge coming up on April 4th, and we'll just take you by the hand. We do it live on Zoom, and we'll show you exactly how to uncover the missing pieces that you have been stopped, and struggling your whole life.
Interesting. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, so why don't you, if you would, I know you've got a great book called Mint for More. And
Yes.
I love the whole premise is like, because there's a lot of people who are at a little different point in their journey where they've had some level of success.
Sure.
They thought, okay, this is the path. This is what I'm supposed to do. I'm going to go out and I'm going to seek to do it. Okay, I
Yeah.
accomplished that, and
Yeah.
now I feel unfulfilled, and I know I'm meant for more than this. And I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I can share from my own experience, and like all of my clients have felt this way. But when we first are starting out, we're doing it from survival, right? So from our
Yeah.
protective self, from our ego, which is just a form of protection. So we're looking for like, what is the safest thing, or what should do, instead of what am I really gifted at? Like in our society, it's really fascinating, but in our school system, right, we don't actually promote like staying in your zone of genius. We actually, oh, you're bad at math, well then now let's force math really on you, right?
Yeah. Right.
Like
Totally.
we don't teach zone of genius in the way that it really works in reality, not in as a, inside of a concept, is in business. You want each person's zone of genius, them in to be in that right seat. So you've got the
Yep.
right people doing the right things every day in the right way. When you operate a really well-oiled machine, coming from each person staying in their own lane, in their own zone of genius, together the collaboration of that far exceeds any individual
Hmm.
component, right? I know
Right.
you know that.
The sum is
But
greater
that
than the equal parts, right?
always, right?
Yeah.
But what happens is we're not taught that. So oftentimes then what happens to us is, because we think, from that original core trauma, we think there's something wrong with us and we can't trust ourselves. We must listen to all these other people. So we stop listening from our intuition and from who we really are, and we start listening to outside sources and so forth. And that is the surest way to be miserable, right?
Yeah.
Because
Right.
because that's why you end up with a business that you don't even love, because you
Yeah.
did it because it was what you thought you should do. Hence what I did. I did insurance for 24 years, and all of my clients used to say to me, I think you're in the wrong business.
Right. Wow.
And I'd be like, really? Why? What do you think this is? Like, you should have been like a motivational speaker or like some type of coach or something. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, here I am doing insurance for
Yeah.
24 years.
Wow.
But yeah, that's what happens to us, right? When we doubt ourselves, we doubt our decisions, and then we do things that really don't really fulfill us.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that how many people out there have done something that doesn't really fulfill them for 24 years listening, probably quite a few, or whether it's 2 years or 4 years or 12 years, whatever it is, it's like,
Yeah.
it's never too late to turn it all around and
No.
to start on a new path that is more in alignment with who and what you are
So
allowing
true.
to
So
unfold, right?
true. Absolutely. Because one of the greatest gifts that those clients gave me, the ones that like was doing for insurance for 24 years, I had a lot of elderly clients because of where we that was a brick and mortar business. Now my business is online. But back then, at that time, it's like one of the greatest gifts they gave me is because they were in their 80s or even early 90s. I would
Mm-hmm.
ask each one of them, okay, if you had to do this all over again,
Mm,
what advice would you give your younger self? Like, I always was so curious, like, what would you do differently? They
yeah.
always said the same three things over and over again. Number one, I should have done what I wanted to do and not what people told me to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like in some form, they were always saying, I should have risked more. I should have gone
Yep.
after my dreams. The second thing they always said, I wish I would have slowed down and like really, become present with my kids when they were younger, or with my
Yeah.
spouse. Like I was always in a hurry to get somewhere,
Yeah.
right? So really to slow down, become present, reflect more about
Yeah.
what is your priorities and what do you want more. And the third thing they always said, and again, for anyone listening, like ask this yourself, like if you were really facing death, and it wasn't that far away, what would you want your life to really be about? So the third thing they always said is, I wish I would have left some type of legacy.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if everybody understood that like nobody gets out of here alive.
Yeah. Right.
But yet we act like there's something we're trying to survive.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to get out of here alive. And
Right.
if we really just accept that, not as a, something wrong, doom and gloom, but more of like, wow, from a positive, head
Poetic.
podcast standpoint.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. From a beautiful place. If when I can accept that I am not going to get out of here alive, and that's not the intention, what we can do then with that is we can then look at it and go, okay, now the resolution to that, how do I want to play this game to win? Right. And through that, you will find self-realization and self-acceptance, and then transcendence of anything you thought was really what was stopping you, to then that you live self-actualized.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I heard something the other day, and it
Yeah.
really, resonated. It was like, I forget who it was. It was some celebrity or someone, who had done some cool stuff in their life. And they said, one of the self checks that I always have whenever I'm going down any particular path or taking any particular action, does this contribute to my legacy? Does this contribute to the legacy I want to leave? And what a great question to constantly, pose to yourself. And, playing it safe is probably the most dangerous thing you can do when it comes to feeling fulfilled on your 90th birthday, right?
Absolutely. I always say to people, the truth is, I'd like you to consider that there really is no moving backwards or forwards. They're just blind spots, and and the way that we have blind spots is when we're operating from our ego or our protective self, and versus our aligned self. From an aligned self perspective, we always know what the next best thing is for us, no matter what different phase or different stage of business or life we're in, right? It's
Yeah.
really comes down to that. And so it's really about mastering living awake in business and life, that will allow you to really be able to live your life intentionally versus aimlessly, having you live your life from a vision, right? Like we coach it inside of a vivid vision, communicating effectively, being present through your life, like wherever you are, being all there, equipped to transcend any obstacle, any challenge, any perceived constraint. And so that you're really operating from this fun, freedom, and ease, which then allows you living in your full potential to scale your business sustainably and profitable, because we're huge humanitarians, like, so it allows us to do so much, and our whole intention is to leave this place better than how we found it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's when you're doing that, you're really starting to understand, the true structure of reality, in that, it's like, what is it like? Someone is, what is the quote I've seen many times? Something to the effect of someone who, plants a tree,
Yes.
and knows they'll never sit under the shade of it, is starting to understand what life is all about,
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
what you're kind of speaking to is really getting into a place where you fully trust yourself too. And,
Yes.
How do you, when it comes to that, there's a lot of people, some people who've had reinforced experiences trusting their internal compass, and that has made them feel strong and confident. And there's others who like really aren't there. And so I'm wondering what you do for that person who, hasn't developed the self-trust, like, oh my gosh, I hear what they're saying, but taking that plunge and, leaping into the unknown is just, I don't know that I trust myself to make the right decision. I mean, what do you say to someone like that?
Totally. That's really great question. We really recommend healing that original core trauma. So like, and we don't do it in, like I always like to say to people, like, what's different about us is most people, when they talk about trauma, they're talking about what happened in the event. And I'm not saying that there isn't trauma in what people have experienced, because we've helped people from any and all kinds of trauma, from sexual abuse to, from being beaten. But also, here's what's not talked about, where there's a lot of trauma we heal, is being left to cry in the crib.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, doesn't have to be so traumatic for the what society considers a trauma, because trauma is in the eye of the beholder. And so where we're different is not only the way that we are describing a trauma, but we're also different in the way we're really healing the split in self, where you stopped operating from your true self and went into your protective self. We actually show you how to stop running that programming. But what, to answer your question, like, why they don't doubt themselves, and then once we do that, so it is a recipe, and it's not one thing, so it's kind of like this. I'll just give you an idea of, so everybody can get their minds around it. Every successful recipe has an order to its ingredients, right? So if we were going to bake an apple pie, and we had never baked an apple pie before, we have to first understand the entire recipe. Then we have to understand the order of the ingredients. It's not enough to have awareness of your core trauma and then be healed.
Yeah.
Like, awareness is not enough to get a result, right? Awareness just makes you aware that that's where it's coming from. So then we have to like do the ingredients in the right order, and we can't skip an ingredient, right? If you change the order of the way that you're baking, it doesn't actually come out like an apple pie. If you leave out sugar in some way, it's not going to taste like an apple pie. It's kind of like that. So along with healing that core trauma, what we then do is we teach people a really revolutionary self-coaching method that allows them to get out of their head from the protective self and into their intuition, how they access a higher level of consciousness. What is really cool about this, which is, so for those that are like me, that I'm like, okay, I can't freaking meditate for 5 hours a day. I'll never get anything done.
Right.
Like, I was always one of those people, like, I don't understand. Like, how am I supposed to get anything done if I'm always trying to avoid my life or cope with my life? We don't teach coping mechanisms. We actually give real life skills. And what it is, to answer your question, and like, it's the combination of these things that I'm going to tell you that has you build back trust to yourself. It is the combination. It's the whole, all of the ingredients together produce the whole. And so it's very much the same. What the aligned intelligence method does is that skill allows you to uncover your blind spots. It it shows you how to process your emotions anytime you feel triggered, so that you can come back into alignment within yourself. It shows you how to stop the destructive thinking that is causing havoc. It shows you how to clear up the misunderstandings or misconceptions that are in your way. It'll show you your patterning, like where you're self-sabotaging and what the pattern is, and how to free yourself from the trap. It shows you like really how to live from your intuition and your aligned self. That's what it does. And the reason it's so successful is because we're not trying to go through the mind. Like, can you feel that? Let me explain it this way, because I think this way really lands. Can you feel like, in the US, if I'm thinking of like, okay, if we're in New York City and we're at ground level from the Empire State Building, can you feel that the view from ground level is completely chaotic? Right? Like, it's busy, it's noisy, it's like you don't have clarity from down there. But if you were to go up that building to the highest point and look out, the view changes.
Yeah.
Same position, just a higher access level. When you know how to like go above, and then it's the combination of that skill of being able to see that big picture, really assess and check your own assumptions, be able to sort those things, and then come back down and apply into the truth. Now the details, you can close the gap from where you are to really where you want to be.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. When it's all about, the more you can expand the blinders, so to speak, the greater the view. I think all of our life, there's so many times where we're like, why, and I think in the end, it's going to all makes so much sense why every little thing that ever transpired in our lives was happening for us, not to us. And, for me, trusting that, no matter what, it's one of the keys in my book, trust the mystery. Even though it's not necessarily something that I would have chosen to show up in my world, I trust that there's something there for me. And I instantly start seeking to understand how can I, learn, grow from whatever this experience is. And so, and a big part of that is right, trust and truth. And so I'm curious your thoughts on separating how do you separate truth from ego?
Yeah. First it will feel completely different. Like, what I mean by that is they never feel the same, right? When you're in ego and when you're in your aligned self. So ego will always feel like some sort of resistance. So if you can feel that, when we're in our protective self, we're going to feel some type of attachment to something, like we're trying to control an outcome. So there'll be like an attachment, a judgment, some form of story, limiting belief, some way that you identify or see yourself as less than, right? There's always going to be some type of resistance is the best way that I can feel it. So oftentimes people, if I were to ask, people like, where are your limiting beliefs? They would say, oh, I don't know, or I don't think I have any. And the truth is the way you find a limiting belief, it's everywhere you get triggered. Like everywhere you have resistance, consider, is the limiting belief you're looking at. Because when we don't understand, because we're never taught these things, but when we don't understand that our emotions are actually our internal guidance system, right? Where when we think a thought, the emotion we feel will instantly tell us whether the thought we were thinking was in alignment with our, desire, or out of alignment from our desire. So our emotions are guiding us at every moment to let us know whether we're on track or we're not on track. It's kind of fun when you think about it, because it's like we would never get in our car and not like plug into the GPS and go, if we don't know where we're going, exactly how to get there. Like we are using a guidance system, but when we are not taught that we have that same internal type of guidance system inside of us in our emotions, and that we need to pay attention anytime we're feeling negative emotion. Hey, we want to look lovingly and from curiosity and innocence. What is the resistance in that? What is that? And that's how we start to begin to separate. Well, what's the truth about what I'm making that mean? What's the lie about what I'm making that mean? Right? So that we can look from curiosity, separate the truth from the lie, and then be able to process whatever it is that was coming up for us, such that we will feel release. Like there's a release that happens in the body and in the mind. There will be a release, is when you've released it. And then we can then from now, no thing, right? Nothing, no thing, no attachment. Now we have access to real power, because that's from the first place that we can really deliberately choose, well, how now do I want to feel instead? Yeah. And then go all in on that, so that we can then achieve the results we really want to have.
Yeah, I love that. And it makes me think of, how much we can tell story around things that then sort of bind us and hold us down. Like, if I come and smack you in the face, it can be like, I'm a victim of trauma, there was so much hate, and, I was traumatized and, super hurt, and they, disgraced me. And you could tell all the story around what happened, or you look at it from a happening, like, oh, I was struck. There was a stinging sensation. I was a little, surprised in that moment, where it's just, you separate all the story to something that happened to us. And I think there's a lot of us, we have those key moments in our life where something happened that we really attached a lot of story to, about a betrayal or whatever.
It'll be the core trauma. It'll be the
Yeah.
core trauma, and then that core trauma just keeps getting bigger in your life. So then you'll have another one that happened very similar, but like a bigger degree of that, or another one, and then another one. I
Yeah.
mean, this is what we hear. So we see this all the time. Like there was a, it doesn't always have to be this kind of trauma, but we see everything. So it can be from any kind of trauma you can think of. I've seen it, healed it, helped someone through it, and processed it, involved it. But there was a young woman who came to me, and she was a business owner, and her trauma was when she was 4 years old. She had a baby sister that was like right under two, and her mom left when they were born, shortly after the second, her sister was born, and they were raised by the father, and the father was an alcoholic. So he
Wow.
would drink, and then he would become abusive. So
Mm.
this one time when she was 4 years old, dad was in a fit because the baby sister spilled something on the table, and then the older sister, this woman, she stepped in and took the blow,
Wow.
right, from her dad. And then her dad would beat her, like he would beat them, and then he would go buy her something. So this became a
Mm.
pattern. So then
Mm.
in school she was bullied.
Mm-hmm.
And then inside of that, again, it doesn't have to always be this traumatic, but I like to show as an example. Then when she was a teenager, her and her best friend snuck out around 11 o'clock, went to go to get Taco Bell, and these three guys, you know, grabbed them in a car, ended up raping them and killing the best friend. The reason I'm
Wow.
saying all this, and she got away. And the reason I'm sharing all this, is because when she came to me, not like we healed the first one, and then of course that is another traumatic one inside of
Oof.
it, but like they start to unravel. So
Yeah.
everything starts unraveling, and they start losing the hold, and we helped her really go through a process of healing. And within 6 months, she created $1 million. She had never created $1 million in her business before. What happens is this stuff that feels heavy is really heavy energetically, and it's
Yeah.
weighing us down. And when we can start to see, with not at fault, like no one, this is not about blame or being wrong or at fault, but when we can start to see that there's a universal law called the law of cause and effect, and
Mm.
that it really states that whoever we're being as a cause creates a ripple effect of an effect that comes back to us. And she didn't know that there was an energy of an expectation she was holding inside of her, that people are going to beat her up and abuse her. Like she was holding the energy by
Mm.
even just trying to brace herself against these people. She was attracting those people,
Yep.
not because she's at fault, not because she's bad and like this is not
Yep.
wrong,
Yep.
right? I'm saying this with total love and compassion. We're never taught that the law of cause and effect is a huge law, as powerful as the law of gravity.
Yeah. Right. Right. Wow.
Right? Otherwise we'd pay attention to, like, what are we carrying in our body? How much is that, what is the emotion we're holding? We want to look lovingly at that, give that a voice, and really start being able to release that pent up energy, so that we don't have those experiences happening anymore. She has gone on to, now she's married to the man of her dreams. They're just phenomenal. As the guy is like perfect for VP of her
Mm.
company now. Like it's
Oh,
awesome. Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. It's one of those things. It's like the message gets louder until we really are willing to take a look at what it is that's
Yeah.
at the core, right?
Yeah. And it's the best thing you'll ever do for your life. Like it really stops that questioning and doubting, because when you see how everything is really connected and everything is there, and we will keep experiencing it over and over again until we stop that cause and effect, and still the energy is no longer present in us. It'll keep happening, not because we're bad and wrong, but because we're holding in energy, and everything is energy.
Yeah.
In this time space reality we live in, everything's energy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And, one of the things that I know a lot of people get caught up in is you were talking about it earlier, was, how important it is to be present. And I couldn't agree more. It's one of the biggest lessons in my own life. And My initials are BBB, and I think that was something that I came in with, like, okay, you need to get this lesson. Like, we're going to beat you over the head with it. And, people are either so caught up in the past, oftentimes, like I know I
Yeah.
can be really nostalgic, or even more often, I think, worrying about the future or projecting into the future or telling a story around the future. And, I've probably heard it said, worry is a poor use of imagination. And so, what are your thoughts about getting out of that trap of,
Sure.
worrying about my future?
Sure. So what happens and again, I'm going to say this with the most love and compassion for anyone, because we're really not taught this. This is why I wrote the book, Meant for More, so that not only will it fulfill on my promise that I made when I was 13 years old, that I would give it to the world, but also so that the world would really know the truth of how life really works, not how we've been taught it works. And then how do we work as a human being? Like, what is this human being thing, and how do we get our mind, our emotions, and our actions all in alignment? And so what you're saying is beautiful, because again, when we're not taught that, the truth is that there is no past and there is no future. Like, the illusion that there is in a future, and there is an illusion of there as a past, meaning when we think about something that happened in our past, all we are doing is reliving it in a now phenomena, right? So it's not that the past stays really in the past. Every time we pick it up, we're actually re-engaging it. And what happens is, anytime we feel that energy inside of us, that negative energy inside of us, we are literally creating by default that same experience to now happen again. So we're really creating that. Like, that's what you were saying, is like, kind of like, I don't remember your exact words, but it's kind of like what I would say is like, worry is prayer for the unwanted, right?
Yep.
Someone said that. I don't know who said that either, but it's kind of like that. What you were meaning, right, is the exact same thing. And so what I like to say about that is, like Earl Nightingale said, whatever we plant in our subconscious mind and nourish with repetition, so an emotion, so whatever we feel in the body, I'm going to say it differently, like it's in the body, whatever we feel in our bodies and we nourish and repeat with emotion will become a reality. And this can go either way, right? Because in this time space reality we live in, there's another universal law called the universal law of polarity. And the universal law of polarity says that there's nothing in this universe that exists in a half of something. So that means everything's existing in an equal and opposite whole. And what does that mean? So that means for there to be an up, there's a down. For there to be an in, there's an out. That means for lack to be here, the equal and opposite abundance must equally be here at the same moment in time. If a problem exists, that means the solution to that problem exists in the same moment in time, not a different moment. Everything is happening in the now.
Right.
And what has us focus on, whether we're focused on the past or the future, is we tend to focus, we're never taught that time doesn't really exist, that it's just everything is a now phenomena. And what we're doing is, when we're worried about the future, it is our best attempt, when we don't know how to create our results on purpose, on intentionally, deliberately, it is our best attempt to try to control the future. Right? We worry as a way to control it. When we focus on the past, it is our best attempt because we've never been taught how to process our emotions, so that we no longer live in our past. It is more of an attempt to, when we focus on our past, it revalidates that there's something wrong with us. And then we stay trapped in the wrong problem using the wrong solutions.
Yeah.
Right. And again, this is with love, because nobody knows they're doing this.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I didn't know. That's why I built the first one from complete burnout and self-sabotage. And, the rest, I'm 54. So it's like, I spent the first half of my life in survival. And so now the next half of my life is all about thriving and no longer surviving. So
And
Yeah, we're
like you
just not
said, it's
taught.
two sides of the same coin. And so you're having the experience of you can't know that which you are unless you know that which you are not. And so a
Correct.
lot of us, it's like, instead of telling the story of poor me, I was in survival, it's like, you're like, oh, okay, now I can fully appreciate being in thrival consciousness because I've
Totally.
been there and done that. And I think that's an important thing, when people, a lot of times I think, their story can end up kind of bringing them down, and it's like, okay, the
Yeah.
cards have been so stacked against me. I've been so beaten down. I just, I give up as opposed
Yeah.
to, you know, this is, smooth seas never made for a skilled sailor. You came to be a skilled sailor. And, the greater one toils for their freedom, the greater the sense of freedom, I believe, is ultimately attained. And so if you can adopt that perspective, if you've had a particularly challenging journey,
Yeah.
keep going.
Yeah, I mean, I really feel that, I know for a fact inside of working with so many people, myself included, though, inside of like really having this healing and going through what happens in reality is we get to keep the strengths and we get to let go of the weaknesses.
Mm,
Like what happens is if we don't heal this, I want you to feel this. This is what I mean by that. See, what stops people is not logical, it's emotional. Because when we don't heal that emotional part of ourselves, we actually limit our intellect, right? Like we can't, like, where is potential? What potential is in the moment of any situation, circumstance, or with any kind of person, any type of person, is you being more in that moment.
yeah.
Like that is potential. Where does your potential lie? It lies in the gap between your automatic programming, which is the survival pattern from your core trauma, inside of the gap between that you have access to now a choice in that same moment, how to choose to be more in that same type of situation and shift the way that situation actually goes or actually results in. You get the power to change reality. And when you see that, this is not about controlling others, but it's more about you have all the power and none of the control. When you know where that really is in the body, there's nothing you cannot achieve. There's nothing you cannot achieve. Nothing. Like it's just real freedom comes from non-attachment, non-resistant, and completely full self-acceptance inside of us being who we are, and then always knowing there's always going to be an opportunity to even be more. So it's not an arrogance ego. It's not like now we're going to flip over to the other side and go, I'm all that and everything. It's really, there's a humility to
Mm-hmm.
this, in understanding that, right, this is the way, like, and it's only can be achieved once we go through it inside of each person. Like you can't give this wisdom to someone, they actually have to uncover it inside
Mm-hmm.
of their own journey, in their own self-realization, self-acceptance, transcendence, so that they too can live self-actualized. And it is what everybody's looking for, that they don't know what
Mm-hmm.
to call it, that they're like that feeling that you're always missing something and you don't know what it is, but there's something missing in your life. It doesn't matter how much success you've had. It doesn't, like, when I was built my first company, I was so successful and I couldn't understand why I still felt so inadequate. Why, how could I become, because I thought, from growing up poor, I thought all I have to do is become wealthy and I've arrived. And
Yeah.
you don't really arrive from that, because when it's still inside of you feeling like there's something wrong from your core trauma, no amount of success can fill that hole.
Yeah. Right.
So it's most important to heal the hole in the bucket and then build success
Yeah.
and wealth from there. And then you won't regret any of it.
Yeah. Right. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Well, I'd love to, shift gears a little bit. I always love to hear a story, an inspiring story of synchronicity or serendipity or positive paranormal
Mm.
story, anything that has transpired, those breadcrumbs along the way, or spiritual breadcrumbs that have been left that, were an inspiring moment or story that you'd like to share?
Sure, absolutely. So how I uncovered all of this is I had paid a best-selling author, really famous person in personal development, $50,000 to like I've spent over half a million in my own coaching, but I had
Wow.
this was what really broke it and really got me to see everything. Is the catalyst in the journey, the synchron. This is where the whole synchronicity is going to start to come.
Mm-hmm.
Like inside of this, I'm really coachable. I did exactly what he said. I failed miserably. Everything that he told me to do, I wasn't getting the results. And I remember coming to him and saying, like, what do you think I'm missing? Like, what am I not getting? What am I not seeing? Why is this not working? And I'll never forget it. He said to me, Mia, you just need to go in your room and lock the door and not come out until you figure this out.
Mm.
Now, this is where, like, that part of me, like, you never forget the value of a dollar when you grew up poor. And I was like, I didn't need to pay you no $50,000.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
like I just like lost it, right? Like, you're got to be kidding me. That is the answer.
Yeah.
It was like one of those pivotal moments where it's like, you go to Oz and you pull back the curtain and the person behind is like not really
Yeah. Right.
who you thought it was.
Yep.
But why this is all adding up and what I want to show, like how this is my synchronicity moment, is that it took that moment after spending a half a million to try to find the answer, and that I was like, okay, they don't know it. So
Yeah.
then it's not that it's not that there isn't an answer, it's that
Yeah.
they don't know it. So
Yep.
then I became obsessed 24/7 to uncover, where does this all come from and how does this really work, and why do bad things happen to good people, and how do we get things to work the way that we really want to work so we can achieve what we want. And so here's how all of it all comes together. What if I told you, for those of you listening, what if I told you everything in your life has not been random?
Mm-hmm.
What if I told you the good and the bad has come according to you, although you didn't know how you had programmed it?
Mm-hmm.
What if nothing was a coincidence and you could alter that programming by understanding how it really worked, so that you could then apply it on purpose deliberately, so that you could achieve everything you ever wanted and so much more.
Mm. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. It's even for those who feel maybe lost in it. It's like, they're somewhere in that journey and haven't really had their big breakthrough moment. It's like, I find it so encouraging and empowering. Like someone like myself or you or whoever you went to, or the many other people out there doing podcasts and books, they can, lead a horse to water and point, but you can't make them drink. And at the end of the day, you have to, really go and go within and self-examine and say, okay, and I think there's a lot of power that comes from saying, okay, I'm ready to be brave. I'm going to invite it to the surface. I'm setting the intention, universe, higher self, God, whatever source, whatever you want to refer to, that, I'm ready to really see. And I think just setting that intention and being brave enough to say, I want to really look at this and I want to move through it is just so powerful for all of us to do.
Yeah, no, that I love what you're saying, and that it reminds me of a quote by, I think his name was Leland Van Walden. Like, I'm always trying to get that right. Leland Van Walden or something like that. But basically he said something to the degree of, like, the degree to which a person can grow is directly proportional to the amount of truth that he can accept about himself without running away.
Ooh, I love that.
And that's what you're pointing at. And I would say that it really is the way, because everybody can feel this, you don't evolve consciousness by trying to avoid it, hide, protect yourself. And you don't avoid consciousness by attacking it, trying to resist it or overcome, force it into
Mm-hmm.
submission. The way you overcome is actually by going through the processing of it. It's an
Mm-hmm.
internal it's an internal road journey. And when you know that you have the right skills and you have the right support where they can show you exactly where this is happening and support you in that alignment of it, and you do that consistently such that you learn to live in alignment day in and day out, day in and day out. Not perfect. You just need 51% of your day to live in alignment, and you will completely change your reality. And that is really power.
Yeah, that's an inspiring, actually, thing to share here as we wind down. Like, you don't need to be 100%
No.
perfect. You
No.
need to just be more in alignment than not.
That's all it is. You just want to tip the scale
Yeah.
in your power of alignment every day, and your life will look vastly different.
Yeah. And you don't need to do it all in one moment, one sitting. If it's like, if tomorrow you're like a little bit better than you were today, and then the next day a little bit better, just lives little incremental, expansions and growths, they start stacking and you get, compounding results.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, this has been amazing. Mia, I so appreciate you taking the time to come on and share your wisdom. And what is the best way for people to connect with you? And
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Well, you can reach out to team at Mia Hewett, and Hewett is spelled Hewett. So reach out to team at miahewett.com. And what we'll do for your special listeners only is we'll give them a special code to come off, like 10% off of joining us in a challenge. And where they can uncover the truth of, how to stop self-sabotage. We give them the skills of how to do this, and then find what their core trauma is, know how to then charge for what they do their worth so that they can achieve what they really want. So it's called How to Stop Self-Sabotage, Know Your Worth, and Charge for It challenge. And the next one is on April 4th. So yeah, just for yours, that's what I would tell them to do. That would be the great, or you can check me out at miahewett.com, either way. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, that's very gracious of you. And I'm sure some people will reach out via email to learn more and take advantage of that. And this has been great. I do have one final question for you here. Sure. And it is this. In 60 seconds or less, what is the meaning of life, according to Mia Hewett?
That's a great question. The meaning of life is when, most people say, well, I don't know how to find my life purpose. I'd ask you to consider that the meaning of life is that each person has a core trauma and loses themselves. So the true meaning of life is for you to find yourself. And it is an awakening.
Yes, I love that. Well said. Thank you, Mia, for taking the time to share, and all of you out there for tuning in your beautiful brainwaves and incredible hearts. Until next time, journey well. Love you so much. Also, before we sign off, I wanted to remind you to download the Golden Key audio or ebook as my free gift to you at goldenkey.gift using the Golden Key code POSITIVEHEAD. And please, if you enjoy my gift, leave a positive review on Amazon so others can find the book and unlock their lives with the help of the Golden Key as well.